Good evening. Welcome to the July 6th Bedminster Township Committee regularly scheduled committee meeting. I recognize that we have a quorum of Township Committee in attendance tonight in person. Committeeman Stevenson, Committeeman Hickey, Committeewoman Mareski, Committeewoman Fernandez has an excused absence. Ms. Ray, may we please have the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Sure. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News Somerville, the Bernardsville News Whippany, and to all subscribers and posted at the Township Municipal Building on January 7th, 2021.
Great, thank you. Please join me in saying for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so as we've been doing for well over a year now, we've been going over the COVID update for Bedminster. And from the county website, as of this afternoon, Bedminster has 436 confirmed cases. That's confirmation through the PCR testing. Once again, that does not include the rapid tests or folks who obviously have not been diagnosed but have not been tested. So these are laboratory confirmed cases. And certainly over the last several months, the frequency at which these cases are being reported is diminishing. We still remain at 5 fatalities. I will say, based upon the updates that I receive daily from the county, it is still out there. COVID is still out there. Actually, today's report, there were 2 positive cases that came in today. And last week there was a 21-year-old, a 31-year-old, and a 70-year-old that came in. So once again, it's out there. What we know about it is that the vaccines are effective, and not only are they effective at prevention, but they're also effective to the extent of the symptoms that should someone who is vaccinated still come down with it, that the vaccinations themselves will ameliorate the symptoms of the COVID disease itself. So the vaccines work, the vaccines, can't force you to do it, but it certainly can encourage you to be vaccinated. Speaking of vaccination, the vaccination rates for Bedminster Township. And once again, this is from the state website on the vaccine dashboard. So for residents of all ages who have had at least 1 dose of vaccine, that number is at 68%. So 68% of all residents have had at least 1 dose. Once again, according from the state website, and 62% of all ages are fully vaccinated. 18 and over, 78% have at least 1 dose, and 71% fully vaccinated. And according to the state website, residents 65 and over with at least 1 dose, 100%. Fully vaccinated, 94%. Now, we've talked about this in the past. The data is the data. I do not believe that 100% of residents over 65 have had at least 1 dose, nor do I believe that necessarily the 94% is right. And the reason I say that, when you look at the state vaccination dashboard, you'll see that there are towns that are significantly over 100%. So take this as a relative, right? This is a relative number. It's a high number, and that's what we're looking for. So whether it says 100 or 105%, 110% or 99%, what it just means is that our residents are getting vaccinated. But similarly, just as we saw in the very beginning, that these vaccination rates were climbing like this, they're now leveling off, obviously. But the vaccine is available. In most cases, it is free. The county is still administering vaccine. The pharmacies are administering the vaccines. It is easy to get. And because COVID is still out there, the Delta variant is out there, it's a good idea to get vaccinated, and we'll just leave it at that. Public comments, opportunity for public comment. If you are here to discuss the cannabis legislation, the cannabis ordinance, we will be getting to the cannabis ordinance in a very short time. So I would suggest if you have a public comment that is not related to the public hearing regarding the land use, whether we allow or do not allow cannabis related businesses, make your public comment now. If you want to talk about that ordinance 2021-011, which is the way it's drafted, it's been introduced, it would prohibit the cannabis businesses from being located in Bedminster. If you have a comment regarding that ordinance, that will be coming up. Your opportunity to discuss will come up during public hearing for that. So if there's anyone who has a comment to make from the public, if you are participating by phone, dial *9 and you'll be put in queue for public comment. If you are participating via Zoom from your computer, scroll down to the bottom, put your cursor over participants, and then raise your hand, click raise your hand, and Ms. Ray will identify you and put you into the queue for public comment. So with that, Ms. Ray.
I am not seeing any comments there.
Okay. Moving on, we have approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes, which is the June 21st, 2021 Township Committee meeting. Are there any comments regarding those minutes?
Just had one little thing my eye caught on the public comment section, third bullet under Edward Lefty Grimes, just the quotation. Should be after Lefty, not Grimes, that's all.
Oh,
Little typo.
it is. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, with that changed, may we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Yes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Permits and raffles. We have 4 permits and raffles to run through. First is an on-premise merchandise raffle to benefit the Timothy J. Piazza Memorial Foundation, Inc. on August 9, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club, 811 Rattlesnake Bridge Road, Bedminster. Second is an on-premise 50/50 raffle to benefit the Timothy J. Piazza Memorial Foundation, Inc. on August 9, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club, 811 Rattlesnake Bridge Road. Third is an on-premise merchandise raffle to benefit the Center for Contemporary Art on September 17, 2021 from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Center for Contemporary Art, 2020 Burnt Mills Road. Fourth is a social fair permit to benefit the Center for Contemporary Art on September 17, 2021 from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Center for Contemporary Art, 2020 Burnt Mills Road. Bedminster, any questions regarding those 4 raffles? Well, 3 raffles, 1 permit. Seeing none, we have a motion to approve the 3 raffles and 1 permit.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Monthly report discussion by subcommittee chair. We'll start with Committeeman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Nothing on historic pres. We'll have something later this month. On DPW, this past Friday, I took a tour of Bedminster with Wally Percy at Asphalt Pavement Systems, just to see what sort of roadways might qualify for that slurry product that I was reporting on last week or last meeting. And unfortunately, where the 3 or 4 sort of items, roads that we had in queue coming up with our eye on, they were just in a state where you didn't think it would be helpful. So unfortunately, sort of struck out on what we know we have coming, at us. We did take a spin down Old Dutch East and Deer Haven Old Stonehouse, and he thought that pavement actually looked like it was in pretty good shape. So we sort of came away from that meeting thinking that might be a very good idea, or test case for this product. And in discussing with John Mans about that, John indicated that just recently, I think yesterday was it, got notice from the water company that they want to go and replace the main water main on Deer Haven. So here we go again. And so that sort of dovetails me to the next thing, and it's on pavement. And I think that, we need to have some sort of committee or meeting or a couple meeting sit downs in advance of our budget session to sort of map out what is the pavement plan. Because we know we've got the Lucas Brook neighborhood. We've got an application we're going to talk about later this meeting about putting in a request for aid for that. And then we know we've got the area behind Delicious Heights that obviously is an area of sensitivity and concern. Those two projects are just going to be, big numbers. So I think we got to figure it out, and we've got to start laying it out. So I think, John, Robin, myself, and then I'd like, someone else on the committee, of course, if you want to join, I'd love to have you sit down and start just, getting down into the nitty gritty and start really laying out a definitive plan for how we can go about tackling this. Because the only way you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. You got to just do it one road at a time here. But there's a lot of angst out there, I think, in these neighborhoods that, it's time.
What's the time frame for New Jersey Americans, NJW's replacement?
Oh, that water main?
Yeah.
I don't recall. I have to look at the permit.
Yeah, they just gave us notice of the intention to do the work today.
So we don't know if that's
So we don't know when
a
it's-
year,
yeah.
2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
It's like pretty immediate.
Yeah.
They've got another project that they want to get moving on pretty quickly, and that's fixing a water line that goes through the woods between Ski Hill and Old Stonehouse. There's a connection through there.
Oh, no kidding.
There's a leak in that line that they need to fix. In order to fix that line, they need to temporary shut it down, which means putting a temporary line above ground, above, below visitor driveways, in order for that to happen. I reached out to Ken Taylor from New Jersey American Water, asked him to set up a pre-construction meeting so that everybody knows what's going on, because you're looking for road opening permits. I have no problem with the project. I mean, you don't have any problem with the project. I think we need to make sure that the residents know what's going on with that.
And what's is that the entire length of the road? We don't know anything
The
about
water
that.
main?
Yeah, the water main itself.
On Deer Haven?
Yeah.
3,000 feet.
So that's essentially the entire length of Deer Haven. And similar with what happened on Riverwood, where there was some indication that NJW was going to replace curb to curb, and they ended up doing half the street. So that's like, we need to formalize in advance.
Yeah.
We should formalize in advance.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So sounds like there's two meetings, right? One with the water company to coordinate, and then one internally so we can get our proverbial ducks in a row and start laying out a definitive plan of how we execute this paving, because it's going to be painful come budget session.
And just dovetail on New Jersey American Water, or PSA&G, put an application in for a service connection on Title 11 or something today.
That's another break in the pavement.
So it's just, as these services are being offered to the residents, they're taking them up on it.
Now, there are some towns that would have pavement moratoriums that if there's going to be any disturbance to the pavement, then it's a full curb to curb within X years of the property being paved. So if a section is going to be ripped up for water line or utility line, then the onus is on the who's ever breaking up breaking the pavement to go curb to curb rather than doing the patch.
And I'm sorry, we says pursuant to what?
That's other towns do that.
By like town ordinance
Yeah.
or what have you? Okay.
Yeah, so that's perhaps something we want to discuss with John and with Paul Ferrero about that.
Agreed.
So put that on for discussion as well. And
So
Doug,
Yep, just the other DPW update was that we came to, we had a second round of interviews, or I should say probably a third round by this time, with the assistant foreman position, and came to a decision on that. Right? That's, well, so
Correct.
Kevin Murray will be coming back to us in that position. He had left us to go to a different municipality, and, sometimes the grass isn't always greener, so it was nice to have him back, and I think he's going to be a great addition. And then just the last thing, it's not really a liaison's role, but the PSE&G extension of the gas line, just wanted to let you know, I did send an email out to our rep. I don't know whether he's on vacation or not. I haven't heard back, but just seeing if we can get something more interactive than just passing around a piece of paper to fill out. I want to get the residents, asking questions, thinking about it, and having some sort of Zoom meeting where there could be sort of a Q&A, something interactive that's more tangible than just, hey, please fill out this form and, we'll hope for a pipe dream. Did you like that one? That's good.
No pun intended.
But that's all I've got, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Committeeman Hickey.
Mayor, thank you. Good evening, all. None of my subcommittees have met since our last meeting, so I will pass it on. Back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committeewoman Moreski.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, Colin steals my thunder. That's exactly what I was going to say. None of my committees have met, so I don't have anything to report.
Okay, so I'll just report real briefly on the land use board. This was last week on Thursday. So the only application for the land use board was some activity over at Burnt Mills Cidery, including construction of a sort of separate gazebo that might be in use by some bands for live music up at the cidery, and essentially an extension, an overhang from the side of the cidery to, I guess, an area where it's currently tables and some stones. So giving a little bit of cover over the cidery. The application was approved, but not without a fair amount of discussion about the traffic concerns and noise concerns. And there was consensus from both the applicant and the board that the experience of vehicles parking on 206 at that from the cidery up to the Chester border and sometimes beyond the Chester border was unacceptable, and that the applicant would have to come back and review and get approval from our town engineer for a parking plan identifying parking spots and parking locations on premise, and that in no situation would parking be allowed on 206. There was a full buy-in by the applicant. The application was approved. So just keep your eyes open and we'll get updates from Paul Ferrero as he vets that parking plan with the applicant and the applicant's engineer. Coming up on this Thursday, we have another presentation on the AT&T planning study by the county planning consultants, which follows a meeting 2 meetings ago with the land use board, where there was an initial presentation of some concepts. They're coming back with some responses to the comments and questions that the land use board posed to the consulting planners. And then presumably after that July 8th meeting, there'll be a more formal meeting. And I've already proposed that it would be a joint session with the Township Committee and the full land use board so that we can all hear the full rundown of the planning options. A lot of discussions that go back with Colin and me a couple of years ago, and then actually starting with me and Steve Parker going even further back regarding options for the AT&T property to rezone it to one, certainly encourage and improve the use of that property. And once again, as I've said multiple times, our preference remains that AT&T stays in the property and grows at that property. But if they're not going to, if they're going to reduce their presence in Bedminster, we need to have a plan. And that's what that planning study is all about. So Ms. Fernandez is not here. So Ms. Ray, we'll go to administrator's report.
Okay. All right, so briefly, on July 1st, Township Engineer Paul Ferrero submitted on behalf of the Township the 2022 fiscal year DOT local aid grant application for paving the Clucas Brook neighborhoods. You all should have a copy in your book of the actual estimate and the area that this is going to cover. And actually, today I participated in a DOT's project management reporting system training, which was so much fun, to understand the local aid agreement execution process. So I can stay on top of this as we go forward. Human resources update, we are closing the gap on our open positions in the township. As of this evening, we will be appointing a new DPW general foreman and a full-time administrative assistant. Our new administrative assistant starts on Monday, and the DPW general foreman is scheduled to start tomorrow. And we will be interviewing by the end of the week for our last open position out of 7 that we've been filling, a sewer utility manager. So I hope to wrap that up as soon as possible. The Greater Raritan Workforce Development Board Summer Youth Employment Program that we had applied to several months back, we actually were accepted, and we applied for a grant through Somerset County for the summer intern. Our intern started last week on June 29th, and she's making some great headway. She's going to be working 21 hours per week for the next 8 weeks, helping us with our affordable housing files. We're getting all 87 boxes brought back from Iron Mountain, and we're going to just keep going, chugging away. And good news is her wages are 100% covered by the grant, which is funded through the New Jersey Department of Labor. So it's a big help because we can't get to that all that. And she's making some great headway getting things organized. Recreation Department, as you all know, summer camps are underway, as Gina had reported at our last meeting. Morning program enrollment is slightly down from last year by about 15%. We were trying to come up with some reasons as to why that's happening, and we felt that it's down as a result of parents not necessarily feeling comfortable with sending their children due to the pandemic still. It's lingered a little bit too long. It was pretty fresh last year. People were hopeful and thought it was going to wrap up, but it went on for over a year, and I think there's still some reservations by parents. Other interesting point is many of the parents aren't going back to work until September. So they're staying at home, keeping their kids at home and taking advantage of the time with their families. So we think that's the result of the decrease. All the afternoon programs are running at full capacity and going well. And last, to report, Katie Dispensier and John Mance are going to be working together this week to install the little library at Knox Avenue Park. So we plan on, taking photos and sending that information out to everybody in the community. Okay.
Thank you.
And that's my report.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move some things around the agenda a little bit, and I'm going to move the public hearing on ordinance 2021-011. I'm going to move that up. We've got a couple folks on participating by Zoom, who I believe may have some interest and some comments on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to defer the introduction of ordinances, and we have 3 ordinances to introduce. We're going to defer that, and we're going to move to the public hearing on ordinance 2021-011. This ordinance amends the township's regulations regarding prohibited uses for zoning to include cannabis establishments, cannabis distributors, cannabis delivery services in the township. May we have a motion to open the public hearing on ordinance 2021-011?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Ray, do we have a report from the planning board on this ordinance?
We did receive a report back several weeks ago, which was in your packets at the last meeting.
And for the record, did it indicate that the ordinance is not inconsistent with the township master plan?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Ms. Ray, on that. So where we left off was after discussing what to do, and let's go even back further. So legal cannabis, legal recreational marijuana was subject of a referendum, state of New Jersey. It passed. The legislation has been enacted. Recreational marijuana has been legalized as part of the suite of laws that the legislature passed. was establishing a licensing program for recreational marijuana, cannabis businesses. 6 categories of businesses, and each of those categories comes with a license. The legislature allows municipalities to opt in to allowing those businesses to be located within their towns, and an opt-out provision for municipalities to say, thank you, but no thanks. We don't want all of them, or we want that business, but not those businesses. The way the legislation was drafted was if municipalities do not opt out, then they are presumed to opt in, and they have an opt-out deadline by August 21st. At the same time, Trenton is moving forward with a suite of regulations that, believe it or not, will bypass the Administrative Procedure Act. And those regulations will identify how these businesses are supposed to operate. It does not appear that those regulations will be in place in time for municipalities to make decisions by August 21. So to some extent, you'll be flying blind. You'll be saying, if you opt in and say, we're okay with having those businesses in town, or you simply do not opt out, in which case you've opted in by default, then whatever the rules and regulations that are finally put in effect will govern the way those businesses operate. So what are municipalities to do? What is Bedminster supposed to do? And we've talked about this here at length, also with a presentation from John Bellardo's law firm with some 2 state experts, including one of which was involved in some of the drafting of the legislation. So we've gone through details, and from here as the mayor, I also, asked everyone to go back to their different subcommittees and talk to their subcommittees about what their thoughts are on allowing the legal recreational licensed businesses, what their thoughts were on operating. And we heard from different committees, and some said, hey, a super high-end dispensary, could be okay. And others said, absolutely not. And from a zoning perspective, we don't know what a super high-end dispensary is, and nor can you legally zone only high-end, but nothing else. So there does seem to be consensus that until the regulations are in place, it's appropriate for Bedminster to opt out. And that's the legislation that's before us. It's been introduced, and now is the public hearing. So before we open it for public comment, John, any further thoughts from you on the ordinance, or from certainly any of the township committee members regarding our proposed ordinance banning those legal marijuana, cannabis businesses from operating in town?
As I indicated during the introduction of the ordinance, Mayor, it bans as permitted uses cannabis cultivators, manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, retailers, and delivery services. The prohibition does not apply to the delivery of cannabis items and related supplies by an outside delivery service. So a resident that wishes to have cannabis delivered from a permitted use or retailer in an adjoining municipality that has permitted this is allowed to do so. So there is access, as the state legislature indicated, provided it's from a licensed facility.
And also, this ordinance does not involve medicinal or medical marijuana.
It does not, because those are not subject to the 5-year opt-out provision of the state legislation. Medical marijuana is covered by a entirely different statute.
And it may be that when the state rules are finally put into effect, we may reconsider the opt-out. And we may say, hey, based upon the way these rules read, perhaps Bedminster is okay with the cultivation, the distribution, the wholesale, the delivery, the retail. Perhaps. But until those rules and regulations are promulgated, we don't know what they are. So with that, let's quickly go around the room. Committeeman Stevenson, thoughts?
Look, when we heard that we had a drop dead date to opt in or opt out, and we knew that we weren't getting any guidance from Trenton until afterwards, to me, it was an easy decision. I think we'd be irresponsible to permit something that we have no idea what we're permitting. We can always go back, like you said, Mayor, and undo something with a scalpel. But this to me is an absolute no-brainer, because if we don't do it, we lose control, because then someone else will come in and dictate to us what we're permitting in our town. And I don't think that's what we want. So to me, it's easy.
Okay, thank you. Committeeman Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. As we mentioned before, I think we followed a very thoughtful, deliberative process throughout this entire several months, considering the options. Look, we based this ordinance, as you mentioned, on the best data currently available. We're preserving our options for the future, and if and when new information becomes available, and if it serves the best interest of our residents, it should always be that two-pronged litmus test, then we can always revisit it. But based on what we know now, I think we're making the best decision for the town and for our residents.
Okay, thank you. Committeewoman Mareski.
Thank you, Mayor. I think where we're located in our state, we're kind of sensitive because of the all the highways that are coming through our town. And I think this is a pretty wise decision to make sure that our townspeople are considered first. We make sure that they're safe. And we can always, like Doug said, we can always go back and let things come in when we know what the rules are. But right now, it's probably the best to just keep it all out till we figure it all out.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what we'll do now is we'll open up to the public for comment on ordinance 2021-011. And once again, if you are participating on this call, well, on this Zoom meeting by phone, please press *9 and you'll be put into queue and identified for public comment. If you are participating by computer, bring your cursor down over participants at the bottom of the screen, click on raise hand. Ms. Ray will identify you. When you are let in for comment, please state your name and your address. And for public comments, we are limiting it to 3 minutes. Ms. Ray.
Okay. Well, I know we have Paige Nielsen with us from, she's the Youth Engagement Coordinator from Community in Crisis. Paige, I didn't know if you wanted to introduce your students. You need to unmute. There you go.
Sorry, yeah, I'm not sure how to raise my hand. I should probably figure that out. But yes, my name is Paige Nielsen, and I'm the Youth Engagement Coordinator for Community in Crisis. And we have 2 youth members today with us that would like to give statements. They've spoken in a few of the other town council meetings, and it's been very well received. So we were happy that we had the invite today to come and speak. So I will open the floor now to Jabeen.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jabeen Sheikh, and my address is 12 Parkwood Lane, Basking Ridge, New Jersey. So I'm going to read my statement now. Making marijuana so easily accessible in our community will leave adolescents under the false impression that marijuana use is not detrimental to their bodies, minds, and futures. The adolescent brain is not fully developed and is very vulnerable to damage from the use of marijuana. It has been linked to increased risk for depression and suicide, and even psychosis, and it can negatively impact cognitive abilities and academic performance. I would imagine that everyone here is aware of the devastating effects marijuana use can have on a young developing person's brain and body. But are we also recognizing that marijuana has the capability of destroying a promising teenager's future? It is quite clear that Bernardsville and Bernards Township are brimming with brilliant students, talented athletes, and individuals who can make a real impact on the world. Opening marijuana retailers will only hinder these bright futures and promote the idea that our community is okay with selling a substance which, according to data from the National Monitoring the Future study, will increase the likelihood of youth using alcohol and other drugs. This is what frightens my friends and me the most, that our very own peers have a much higher chance of falling under the harmful influence of marijuana if a marijuana retailer were to open. The data on youth marijuana use does not lie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. Paige, do we have anyone else?
Yeah, we have one more youth member from our council that's going to speak. Her name is Maura. Go ahead, Maura.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marwood Lametanelia, and I'm a youth volunteer for Community in Crisis, and my address is 12 Homestead Road, Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Many of us question how the problem of underage drinking even exists, given that the legal drinking age is 21, but the answer lies straight in front of our faces. Alcohol is easily accessible. Teenagers in our community, as well as across the entire country, have found ways to obtain alcohol through siblings, parents, and the use of fake IDs. There are dozens of liquor stores in our town where underage people can illegally purchase alcohol. With the legalization of marijuana stores in our area, marijuana will become a greater threat to our young community, mirroring the popularity and easy accessibility of alcohol. The appeal for marijuana will be even greater. Underage people will find ways to purchase it, and our rising generation will have the notion that drugs are harmless. Even though the sale of marijuana to people under the age of 21 is prohibited, marijuana companies still reach youth in legal states. For example, it was reported that in Washington state, 61% of high schoolers believe that marijuana is easy to obtain. Even when marijuana was illegal in our area, hundreds of teenagers found ways to get it. By opening marijuana stores, we are simply fueling their fire and making it significantly easier to fall down the dangerous path of drugs. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, very well said. So Paige, kudos to your Community in Crisis Council. Sounds like you've got some very articulate local residents.
I certainly think so. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And I will say Community in Crisis, as part of our entire process of considering this ordinance and looking at the marijuana legislation, Committeewoman Fernandez, Committeewoman Mareski attended Community in Crisis meetings, the presentations. Renee, you went to the program they offered.
Yep, at Basking Ridge
At
Inn, and
Basking
that's where
Ridge.
I met Paige.
Right. So thank you. I also want to say that some of the comments that we just heard are echoed what we also heard from Board of Health and from our own town doctor, Dr. Agathis. So Colin, to the what you heard from the Community in Crisis reps, that sort of jives with Dr. Agathis's concerns as well.
Very, very well, in terms of not just the economic cost, but the social costs of marijuana. So thank you. Thank you for those comments.
Thank you so much for having us. We look forward to hearing your response.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a good night. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ms. Ray, is there anyone else?
I am not seeing any other hands raised at this time, Mayor.
Okay. If there are no other hands raised, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ms. Ray, can we have a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-011?
So moved.
Second.
We all.
A roll call vote, please. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
And Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for taking us through that. It's, just as we've said, when this came out, I know there were some towns that actually prohibited the businesses before the law even came out. And those municipalities had to go back and redo it. And we know there were municipalities that issued their, put those licensed or licensed to be licensed businesses on a prohibited use like that within a couple of weeks. We looked at the time, we looked at that August 21 deadline, and we went backwards, right? Okay, if we have to meet that August 21 deadline, when do we have to act on? And what can we do before that time comes due? what can we do, right? So we went back. We had discussions here. We brought in experts. We attended the community in crisis meetings. We spoke to our residents. We spoke to our committees and subcommittees. And we took a little bit more of a deliberate approach than some other towns. It may have irritated some folks that we didn't move instinctively or reflexively. But I think that what we did was appropriate. We gave it consideration and we wanted to hear from others. I mean, this is now, I don't know how many times we've gone through this process where we've had members from the public coming in, giving us their thoughts. And by and large, we're all consistent with where we ended up today. So I want to say thank you to all the township committee members and for all the members of the public who gave us their comments, both at township committee meetings and seeing us on the street, seeing us at the farmer's market. I will say that even at Saturday's farmer's market, someone came up to me and said, I think what you guys did was the right approach. To give it time, to give consideration, and talk to others, and frankly, even talking to the governor's office. And when the rep from the governor's office says, yeah, it's really hard to permit something when you don't know what it is you're permitting, I think we made the right decision. So thank you all for helping us get there. We do have 3 ordinances to introduce, and one of which will also touch upon marijuana use as well.
Did you have a roll call vote on that?
Yes, we did.
You did.
Okay.
If you want to vote, John, we'll take one of your votes too.
No, I just wanted to make sure you did. Sometimes that's omitted. Thanks.
No, we did.
Where was he?
So the ordinance that we're going to introduce next is ordinance number 2021-012, an ordinance amending section 3-6.3 entitled Park and Recreation Area Rules and creating section 3-20 entitled Prohibition on the Public Consumption of Cannabis and Marijuana of Chapter 3 entitled Police Regulations of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Bedminster. Now, this follows an introduction of an ordinance or an attempted introduction that we tabled at our last meeting because there was confusion, and I don't want to say confusion, but we, as a township committee, had comments from Mr. Bellardo about defining cannabis, medical marijuana, illegal marijuana, what these categories are, how they work, and looking at how we're going to police smoking of marijuana, smoking of recreational cannabis, and smoking of medical marijuana in our public parks and in our public spaces. So let's differentiate. Public parks. Well, we know what a public park is, right? It's our parks. It's our hike and bike, right? These are places where that are municipally owned and where we allow recreation facilities, right? So once again, hike and bike and our parks, our fields, our trails, that falls into the public parks category. Public spaces, well, that's spaces. Those are areas where the general public has access to. So that could be the shopping center. That could be the parking lot at King's. It could be the parking lot at Quick Check. Any other public space that, well, it could be a private space, but it is open to the general public. What public spaces do not include are condominium properties, private golf clubs, personal residences, businesses where the general public is not invited into. So this ordinance would prohibit the smoking, vaping, or other aerosolizing of marijuana, and I'm just using marijuana broadly for all those different forms, period, in those public parks and public spaces. it follows what we currently have, which is there's no smoking of tobacco products in our public parks and our public spaces. Actually, I'm not sure about our public spaces, but I believe that's the case. And our focus here, this is not some moral statement or judgment on marijuana usage. State has already spoken. Marijuana is legalized for recreational purposes. This is about the impact to third parties. The smell, the secondhand smoke, the access to that smoke or other aerosolizing of the marijuana products. So this is not, in no way is this meant to be a moral statement on marijuana usage. This is the impact to residents and people who are coming to town. Do they want this in, do they want exposure to the aerosolizing of those products? And that's, this ordinance would prohibit, once again, the smoking or aerosolizing in those spaces. The public hearing for this ordinance is scheduled for July 19, 2021 at 7 p.m. at Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane. May we have a motion to introduce ordinance 2021-012?
So moved.
Second?
Be a roll call vote, please. Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
And Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I will just say also on that same ordinance, I have discussed it with the chief. We talked about making sure that it is not just an ordinance. Well, I want to make sure it's an ordinance that is effective for our police. So you can tell when someone is smoking marijuana, right? So we're not delving deep into edible or non-aerosolized consumption of marijuana products. Someone's eating a gummy, the police are not going to be able to, hey, wait a second. We got to see, whether that's
Swedish fish.
whether it's Swedish fish or something else. That is not a position that the chief nor I want to put our police in, and I'm going to assume the same for the rest of the township committee. So we're focusing strictly on the smoking and aerosolizing of marijuana under that ordinance. Next ordinance is 2021-013, an ordinance appropriating $31,900 for various equipment for the Bedminster Township Police Department. Ms. Ray.
Sure, Mayor, this is a capital ordinance for $31,900 to purchase various police equipment. We're looking to purchase bulletproof vests, the mobile data terminals for the police cars, as well as the SUV parts that are required when outfitting the police cars from the code to a police unit.
Okay, and the public hearing for this ordinance is scheduled for July 19, 2021. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2021-013?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
And Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last is ordinance 2021-014, an ordinance amending chapter 13 entitled Land Management of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Bedminster, 1984, as heretofore supplemented and amended. This ordinance amends 13-303 entitled Zoning Map of Article 13-300 entitled Zoning Districts and Zoning Map of Chapter 13 entitled Land Development of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Bedminster. So this would adopt a new zoning map. So while we've, over the last several years, there's been some rezoning of different properties, changing some of the zoning designations themselves. This would essentially take all the rezoning efforts that have been done over the last several years and create a new zoning map. And that zoning map would replace the zoning map that's currently in our zoning ordinance. John, do you have any other comments regarding this ordinance?
Mayor, it's essentially a housekeeping ordinance. It is something that Paul Ferrero, our engineer, and Frank Banish, our planner, worked on. So it's not adding any new ordinances. The ordinances already exist. It's just updating the zoning map. So that's it in a nutshell.
So real quick, Robin, I noticed you've got the public hearing for this ordinance scheduled for August 16th.
Right, I was going off of waiting the amount of time for the land use board because I have to send it back over to land use for review.
Is there enough time to make this Thursday's meeting? Because we do have a land use board meeting on July 8th, which would, if we do that, then it'll put us on target to have the public hearing on the adoption of the zoning map for July 19th.
We could.
Okay,
Makes sense.
make sense?
Yep.
So we have relatively short land use board meeting anyway.
Right.
So John, are you okay with us just changing the public hearing from August 16th to July 19th?
That's fine, because this is just an introduction.
Okay. So with that, we'll move the public hearing for ordinance 2021-014 to July 19, 2021 at the Bedminster Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane. May we have a motion to introduce ordinance 2021-014?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda. We have A through K on the consent agenda. Are there any resolutions that the Township Committee wants to pull off the consent agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the slate of resolutions on the consent agenda.
Make that motion.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
And Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And may a motion to approve the bill list pending review of individual invoices.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
And Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
New business. Do you have any items for discussion for new business? No? Nope. Nope. Old business. We've already covered the COVID-19 emergency. DOT improvements for River Road and Hills Drive. That's, once again, those are the improvements we've discussed along Route 202, 206, both at the Hills Drive intersection and also certainly at the River Road intersection. Committeeman Hickey told me that he just, I guess that was a week ago, you passed some wreckage on Route 202, 206, right by the River Road jug handle. I know that the matter down at DOT has moved out of design and is supposedly in queue with operations to actually implement. I've been emailing our DOT reps to see where that stands. I reminded, well, I didn't remind them, I told them about that latest incident with the wreckage, and we, I don't know if there was injuries or what was associated with that, but we continue to press DOT to get those improvements made as soon as possible. So we'll just, we'll just keep on keeping on with that until we get some action out of DOT. Utilities.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Just a quick note. I know there's some bad storms tonight. We have now just here in Bedminster, about 648 people without power. I just got an update that says 80,000 across New Jersey are currently without power. So we've had some significant storms, and I will report next time as to the cause and resolution of the outages here in Bedminster from JCP&L. Just an update on New Jersey American Water. Interesting thing that occurred over the last few weeks. Became aware of an issue where a water transportation company, i.e. somebody who fills up pools, was filling up their tankers by tapping a hydrant in a local neighborhood and then going out to places like Chester and Burnsville and elsewhere to go fill up pools. It's very convenient to come here to Bedminster to do that. Apparently, these companies can obtain a permit and a meter from New Jersey American Water to do just that. However, they're also subject to approval from our local fire official, who happens to be Steve Dill. When Steve became aware that not one, but 2 tankers were showing up multiple times a day, engines running and parked adjacent to people's homes, he reached out to New Jersey American Water. New Jersey American Water indicated that pool tankers should be filling up in New Jersey American Water yards, not in residential neighborhoods. So Steve subsequently informed the business owner they are not to fill up here. So kudos to Steve for being so responsive and taking quick action, along with our police department, who fielded a lot of phone calls from residents who were concerned with idling trucks right alongside their backyards. So it seems that situation has been resolved. And then a quick update on Altice, we received multiple complaints about constant disconnects and slow speeds in the Wood Duck Pond and Four Oaks neighborhoods. We've been getting those for months and they just increased. I've reached out to Marilyn Davis, who has escalated the issue to her network team for investigation and resolution. So more to follow on that one. That seems to be a cluster of outages that continue to occur in those particular neighborhoods. And there, that's all I have.
Okay. Doug, I know for some reason it dropped off, but any further updates on Pluckman Park on the senior housing?
No, there was some interest from a third party that doesn't look like it's going to go forward.
Right. Well, thank you for those efforts and for that update. We do have an executive session. We are not scheduled to take any action following that executive session. So why don't we go to Township Committee comments, and we'll then adjourn to executive session, and then we'll come back for the final adjournment of tonight's meeting. So let's start with Township Committee comments. Committeeman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. No comment tonight.
Committeeman Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to note, there was another very bad accident last week on 78 involving multiple tractor trailers. I think one driver lost his life, unfortunately. Just a shout out to our fire companies. You know, those accidents just don't occur between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And the folks who wake up in the middle of the night to respond to these calls are volunteers with day jobs and families. I just want to thank them for being Bedminsters for this day in and day out, and night times too. Thank you guys for what you do, and girls for what you do. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Committeewoman Mareska.
I just want to thank the kids from CIC who came to speak with us tonight. It's very, very brave of you guys to do such a thing. And it's good for you to learn how to do that. And just everybody be safe tonight. Hope power comes back on soon. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Well, I was handed something before the meeting started, and it's from our Director of Public Works. And so after 41 years of service, 25 of which were as the Certified Public Works Manager, I, along with my wife, have made the decision for me to retire and enjoy an easier lifestyle. My effective date of retirement from the Township of Bedminster will be November 1, 2021. Respectfully submitted, John Mance, Public Works Manager. So John has already left tonight's meeting, and we will have plenty of time over the next, let's see, 3-4 months to thank John for his commitment, his dedication to Bedminster. You know, there's no doubt that John, in his capacity as the Public Works Director, has always put Bedminster and its residents first in his actions, in the way he's managed the Public Works Department, the way he's responded to incidents, the way he's been a problem solver, a troubleshooter. Whenever there was an issue, you know, he had great ideas, and in all his ideas, it was always putting Bedminster first. John Nance, you know, and this is all coming right now, but we've seen him work tirelessly. Snowstorms, he's not getting overtime. He's a director, he's not getting overtime. And he's out there driving the plows 24 hours. So John, we thank you for your service to Bedminster. We will miss you, and we will have plenty of opportunities to thank you in the coming months. This last weekend was 4th of July, Independence Day. I hope everyone had a great Independence Day, and happy birthday to the United States of America. With that, may we have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, it's gonna take me a few minutes to, Beth and John's gonna take me a moment or two to get you over there. Give me a second.
And for anyone who wants to stay on, we will, this Zoom room will remain open, and we will return to it after executive session. Okay, it is 8:39, and we are back from executive session. As I indicated earlier, the Township Committee is not taking any formal action following the executive session. So with nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.